cognitive dysfunction for a stroke and your UNUM disability insurance claim. UNUM is known for its claims termination and denial practices, regardless of the nature of the medical condition. It can be frustrating when you've suffered a stroke and have cognitive problems and disabilities. Now, a disability carrier has to take into consideration all the policyholders' disabling medical conditions. But what happens if your physician doesn't support your claim? Unfortunately, that's what happened in the recent case of Arneson versus First UNUM. Arneson was a former executive's future and options trade broker. He was insured under his employer's UNUM disability policy, and he suffered a stroke while at work. He had damage to the left frontal cortex, and as a result, he had difficulty with his vocabulary, remembering certain words, and other cognitive issues, but his post-hospitalization examinations were normal. Under the terms of his disability policy, he had to meet the definition of disabled to be entitled to his benefits, and that was defined as having limitations in performing the material and substantial duties of an individual's regular occupation. Unfortunately, both of his treating physicians opined that he could perform the material duties of his former occupation, citing the lack of neurological or cognitive or functional deficits. In support of his claim, he submitted a report from a board-certified neuropsychologist who had spoken with Arneson, Arneson's former colleagues, and performed neurocognitive testing to determine his abilities. There were limitations in learning new information, especially in a short period of time, as well as low visual memory that would limit his ability to problem solve. Arneson also submitted a vocational report that confirmed he wasn't able to manage the work of a broker, plus because of his cognitive problems. UNUM's medical experts, on the other hand, said, look, we don't think he has any cognitive deficits as a result of the stroke based on the initial test results. UNUM's psychologists reviewed the neuropsychological testing results, and they concluded, as they normally do, that the scores were not consistent with severe cognitive impairment, even though that was not the definition of disability. Cigna upheld the claims denial. It ends up in federal court. Arneson says, look, I can't do the material and substantial duties of my occupation because of the stroke, because of my mild neurocognitive disorder, and I can't do problem-solving tasks. UNUM, on the other hand, argued that the records reflected a recovery from the stroke, and the testing did not reflect any cognitive impairment. So what did the judge do? The judge cited Arneson's own physicians who had discounted his cognitive difficulties as a result of the stroke and opined that Arneson was capable of performing the material and substantial duties of his occupation. UNUM's physicians also agreed with Arneson's physicians, and they explained in their report why they believed that the cognitive impairment was not severe or disabling. So under the arbitrary and capricious standard of review, the judge upheld UNUM's decision, saying it was not irrational. Obviously, it was the lack of support from Arneson's physicians that doomed this claim. It was the normal mental status examination after the stroke. It was the opinions of his physicians that he could do the material and substantial duties of his occupation. And perhaps it might have been a failure of proof to have his treating physicians endorse the neuropsychological report. The record's silent on that, and I'm certainly not placing any blame on Arneson's physicians, but that's something that I would have considered in preparing my appeal. If you have any questions about your rights to your benefits, regardless of whether or not you're insured by UNUM, regardless of whether or not you have a stroke, call me today at 727-894-3188 for a complimentary consultation. I can help you get the benefits you deserve regardless of where you live in the United States.